We are now in sixth part of the Mill lecture. Here we're going to address the problem of motivation, the role of institutions, two types of sanctions in moral motivation, internal and external sanctions. Then we're going to bring up that the real foundation for motivation of morals is social feeling. That is the desire to be in unity with our fellow creatures. We will end by discussing the role of civilization. Mill is interested in motivations, not just in what makes actions moral, but Mill is interested in motivations for those actions as a practical matter. Clearly, the right motivations must be present in order to motivate actions that produce moral consequences. Right doesn't mean that those motivations are moral, just means that we need a certain kind of motivations in order to produce moral consequences. One answer is that institutions must be structured so that when a person acts for one's own benefit, their actions also result in benefits to others. Such institutions could be laws, customs, or codes of organizations. Mill means exactly that when he argues that society must be organized to harmonize the interests of an individual with an interest of everyone else. For example, there are laws that reward and encourage donations, philanthropy of all kinds, and non-profit services. For another example, in education, classes can be organized so that participation is rewarded, so that peers learn from each other, so that one does not only benefits oneself by participating, but all others. The free market is a good example of a utilitarian arrangement. As each person pursues their own selfish profit, all are benefited as the best service providers are left standing through competition. The government would then just have to make sure that competition is fair. Ultimately, there are two types of sanctions that prevent us from pursuing our own benefits without benefiting others, or even at the cost of harming others. There are external sanctions, such as laws and other regulations that distribute rewards and punishments. But Mill thinks that we would still try to avoid these as much as we can or ignore them altogether when these external sanctions do not reach far enough to cover all aspects of life. Loopholes in the laws, for example. So, external sanctions, argues Mill, are not as strong as internal sanctions. Internal sanctions refer to conscience, the pangs of conscience, or moral feelings. This is the real moral motivation, rather than considerations and calculations of impartial intellect or even external sanctions, Mill believes. Mill argues that we, as a result of interactions with each other, develop feelings by which we regard pains and pleasures of others as our own or as equal to our own. As a result of these, we do not simply act for our own benefits only, but also for the benefits of others. And we also abstain from seeking our own benefits when the cost is harming others. The strength of these feelings varies from person to person, depending on the experience of persons, but we all have these feelings due to our social human nature. Mill called these feelings by a single name, sympathy. He also calls them the desire to be in unity with our fellow creatures. Mill argues that it is impossible for us to successfully interact with others at a societal level, but perhaps even at more local and intimate levels, unless everyone's interests are considered equally. It seems that Mill does not think that that kind of equal consideration can be accomplished by rational thinking, but only by feeling. Persons identify their feelings with that of others, and as a result, treat the interests of others as equal to their own. Mill proposes that the more advanced and successful a civilization is, the more this identification of feelings is developed in its members. Civilizations have a range of techniques available to them, such as education, religion, work, and others, that provide settings in which individuals learn to identify by feeling with others. We can add that probably not all civilizations are equally advanced in this sense, and that civilizations can make moves forward in this process as well as backward, and either advance forward toward the not yet achieved progress or regress from the already achieved progress. Thus, Mill, on what a human being is as a seeker of pleasure and happiness, an avoider of pain and suffering, and morality, that is maximizing happiness over suffering for as many beings as possible, and on moral motivation, that it is really feeling that motivates us to act morally rather than intellect or laws.